Right, here we are in the heart of Tuscany. Couldn't be a more Tuscan landscape, and this marvellous hilltop medieval hamlet is known as Borgo di Castelvecchio. You can see all around it there's wisteria, old stones, a lovely courtyard. This is the place we've come to with a party of very disparate, I was going to say desperate, disparate party. Some artists have painted before, some haven't painted since school, but there's a lot of enthusiasm, and the tutors, well, I'm a tutor, and we have Dave Durston from the Cotswolds as well. We're hoping to have make best use of this wonderful landscape and this wonderful farmhouse, which I'm everywhere I look already, I'm snapshotting little views. I love to be quite meticulous in my style. David is completely bonkers, but he's a 20th century artist, and it'd be fascinating to see how people develop during the week, and you know, how David and I share ideas, and you know, just react to this wonderful place.
We're back home now, and I'm sort of reflecting on the week. And this reminds me of the first morning when you and I got up at 6 o'clock, walked around.
Yes, we did.
And we selected various sites, images, concepts for them to look at. And I thought that was a good start to the week.
Well, it was, because it's not just one farmhouse. It's an ancient medieval little hamlet on the top of a hill. There are all sorts of views from it. There are a mixture of architecture, of trees, of landscape, everything you could wish to paint. We need to be ahead of the game, ahead of the pack. The interesting thing is, as soon as we had the group coming round with us, we all spot different things. I tend to be very immediate. I see what's before me, and I respond to it. That clump of trees, that rhythm of those trees going up there, that flash of light. There was a path going up away from the house, which was like a ladder of shadows. And while I respond to that and want to talk about the technicalities of painting, it reminds you of an artist, often a modern artist, and you will stop and start to talk about the artist and how they looked, and that was how they interpreted what they saw, which is fantastic, because for me is 80% about looking. Painting is, we look at things in different ways.
I thought the other thing was we managed to talk about Gestalt theory.
Yes, we talked about the Gestalt.
And with those little bits of terracotta red in the wall, it was just there in front of you. You know, you didn't have to abstract it.
No.
The reality was there. And I think once they understood Gestalt theory and how you can put a picture together and get it to work, it helped them all with the way they visualised the paintings and the way they constructed.
They did seem to understand it, that if you have a terracotta roof in the middle of a picture, you need to have that terracotta somewhere else in the picture to join it up, even if it's within a wash. And if you have some very spiky shapes in a picture, say, then you need something else in similarly or in the same strength in form somewhere else to link it. There's a picture of me standing on my head. This was a serious point. I was trying to make a serious point that when you, I said to somebody, if you turn a head upside down, so standing on your head, then very often what you see in colour, not just form, the colours will look different, because you are seeing things abstractly when you look upside down, and so you see colours you don't expect to see.
And this relates to that artist I told them all about, James Turrell, who bought a volcano.
Yes.
And he's hollowed out chambers so that when you go through and look up and then put your head down, the whole environment, the sky changes. And he told these workers that's what he was doing. Now, in a way, completely different approach to landscape, but you know, it still fits in with some of the things we're looking at with traditional watercolour painting.
It's very interesting because we're looking at so many different people's paintings here, but obviously they are
what they have in common is the Tuscan colours.
Exactly.
So someone might look and say, oh, why is everyone painting the same colours? Well, it's what was there. But in fact, they're painting in different strengths of colour. This painting with the trees, I painted very strong. Alexander painted very strongly. Other people will paint more subtly. But we also painted on location in towns, which is nice. Gave people a relief from that, and in gardens. And they responded remarkably to it, really, and in such different ways. It's inspired me. I did a demo, which didn't finish, but that was good for me, because recently I haven't done a lot of work al fresco, and sitting in front of a group, it pushed me on. People's interest in talking inspired me.
I think what was interesting was what I call the group dynamic, the way everyone was really quite tight to start with.
Yes.
They were a little bit apprehensive, I think. And then you did your demonstration, that gave them a way of working. Then we had the Wednesday morning disco.
Yes.
And that freed them all up.
Yeah, but you really freed them all up. And you had a little talk about artists as well at one point, and opening their eyes to different ways of interpreting in very abstract ways.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Ivan Hitchens, we looked at Cézanne, and we even mentioned Constable and Turner, of course, you know, great English painters. But I think what was exciting was just after 3 days, people were totally consumed by painting, and they were just, wherever you look, people had gone out painting. They were even getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Peter persuaded me at 6 o'clock to go to walk down before it was even light, and we set up our easels, and I did a whole painting before breakfast, which for me is remarkable.
Well,
I don't usually function before my body.
I don't get up early. On the last morning, I got up to have a look at these sunrises you were telling me about, and the blue shadows.
Yeah.
Which was really quite interesting, and the different quality of light and how it changes. And I think I mentioned, you know, in the conclusion, that I didn't understand Mediterranean light, because they talked about Van Gogh moving down to Arles and seeing colours in a different way, and I think just purely being there, painting solidly, I now understand that at least a Tuscan light.
A Tuscan light, yes, a Tuscan light. That's right, because we think of Mediterranean light as being very much to do with the sea, because it is a Mediterranean Sea. This is Mediterranean, but it's inland in Italy, but it's quite a different light from here. It's very overhead. It tends to, you get what I mentioned earlier on, this cushion of atmosphere which softens the landscape, and a lot of the colours seem to merge together. What interests me is, looking at some of these pictures now, a lot of the red in the background, a lot of what I call the burnt sienna, or I use light red to exaggerate it, a lot of them have picked up on that and put it in. Even though you don't obviously see it, when you look at the landscape, they seem to use it because their minds see it, which is fantastic. Also, the two little outings we went to Pienza and San Quirico were very useful, because they gave people a chance to look at something else other than that, and they got some very nice architectural work done, and they tackled things which they found quite difficult.
But there's the painting.
The little postcard that Alexandra
did. And she'd spent hours painting hundreds of marks, but she did this postcard in 20 minutes, and it was
20 minutes, was it?
Yeah, it was probably her best painting. And there's the Jack B. Yeats drawing.
Oh yes, this was Liza, who was unfortunately a little bit not very well, and it mentioned about. And this is there's one here by Jill who hasn't ever painted for years and years, did, and excelled herself.
I think the exciting was just to see how people really did come on. Now I know it's pretty obvious they will do, but when you see it physically in front of you and you see how they come on, and I think they really appreciated that.
There's another Rel Buffy.
Oh yes.
I've mentioned one or two people. I shouldn't, because I'll have to mention them all now, but I'm not going to, because every single person really applied themselves with such enthusiasm.
I agree with you. I think they all gained something some understanding of
Getting a
painting
feel.
process
That's right.
from it. And I think, and I know this might sound a bit trite, but it did change a lot of people's lives, and hopefully they will then go on and produce more paintings after this experience.
Everyone's eyes have certainly been opened in a new way, which is a change of life in itself.
The whole environment was really stimulating from the time we got off the bus. You just looked at the walls, you looked at the buildings, which apparently have been there since the 11th century. And
what you get there much more than this country is what I call light shadow, because we just saw us underneath the wisteria talking just now, and it's in the shadow, but it's so light, you get such a reflected light that you need to actually paint the shadows lighter, or suggest that they are. But by that I mean you're actually using colour in the shadows, mauve in the shadows, which you wouldn't necessarily do in this country because shadows tend to be dark. And it's observing the colour, it's seeing what's in there. I did a couple of demos which were very bright, and it's just a way of opening the eyes to something new, and when you come back home you reinterpret. It doesn't matter what level of painting you are, it's in the perception.
And that's the group show we had at
every night we would look at each other's paintings, and the last
I think the great thing is everyone achieved something positive.
All of us got something.
From a wonderful experience.
Fantastic.
Well, mate, it's been a full-on week, hasn't it? It's not
It
quite a
certainly
week.
has. It's been superb.
Yeah, absolutely. The guests, I would say, rather than students, have been just so pleasant, haven't they? So nice, so wonderful. And they fired me up, I think. I mean, they all seem fired, but I reckon that they've given me more than I've given them.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know they've given you more than you've given them.
What was nice was Lee's painting from exactly the same spot that she started at the beginning of the week, and she was very tentative, very nervous.
She was painting properly, wasn't she?
No, she wasn't.
You corrupted her.
She was struggling.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, well, I walked by today, and there was free brush marks, the colour, the freedom, the confidence was there. That's what I've noticed about the last 2 days. Everyone suddenly, they've opened up to the light and the.
You have to relax into it. The first day, everyone's a bit tense, and then I felt a surge of group confidence.
Yeah.
And then they all started supporting each other as well. But you've done your own painting.
Yes, and you've done yours.
Yeah.
And you're much better now than when you came.
Ha ha ha. And you're not. No, you don't.
Worrying
I
thing
love your
is-
reed pens. I love your reed
Thank
pens.
you.
I've really learned from those.
Yeah, and everyone seemed to. But the worrying thing from your point of view is that I think your wife's better than you.
I only agreed to this interview on the basis he wouldn't mention your painting. So no, wait a minute. You make me sick.
But
try
I think
something
it
else,
just shows how you've suppressed her for all these years.
I have not suppressed her.
That's what I think is about it. The light. I didn't understand about Mediterranean light before. I've been, but I think this week, I've actually understood what Mediterranean light is.
Yeah.
And there are colours here that I've never seen before.
There are colours you don't see in the landscape until you start trying to paint them.
Yeah.
And then you see the colour that's there. So anyway, we could talk all week about it, but we've got to go home soon.
I've got to go
Sadly.
and get a shower. It's been a brilliant week.
Well done.